If you were to ask most wrestling fans today, I think that a large majority of those people would point to Bray Wyatt as the most captivating and interesting part of the whole wrestling genre. And compared to everybody else, and not just WWE, but all of pro wrestling, it's not hard to find the intrigue. He is a deeply complex presence that is both fascinating and spontaneous. However, now that we can look back at Bray Wyatt's first year as The Fiend, of course, ending the night after WrestleMania 36, I'm pretty sure most people will agree that it wasn't completely spotless. Hey guys, my name is Dominic from GrappleNation, and today I look to rebook Bray Wyatt's first year as The Fiend. Now, I think the first real moment The Fiend's momentum was halted, or at least put into question, was when he decided to turn his attention towards the Universal Championship. So I'm just gonna keep everything from real life up until the night after SummerSlam because, well, quite frankly, it was also damn perfect. You have a few teases of a new character, then have the strange reveal of the Firefly Funhouse, watch as it starts to slowly decay into an odd and eerie environment, then have the big debut with the show-stealing presentation of dominance at SummerSlam. But now we have been left with the hottest thing in WWE, and it's time to figure out exactly where to take his momentum. So the next pay-per-view is Clash of Champions, and honestly, I don't think Bray Wyatt should do a whole lot. I think that the Firefly Funhouse segment should be more of an explanation of Bray Wyatt, hyping up the true danger and terror of The Fiend some more. And don't get me wrong, I understand that these may feel a bit old after a while, especially around this point, but I think that we can use these to establish a few things. You see, one of the minor difficulties in the early days of The Fiend, at least to me, was trying to figure out exactly what it is. Is it its own identity, or is it Mr. Hyde to Bray Wyatt's Dr. Jekyll? And, well, I think that these promos could actually be used to establish the relationship between Bray Wyatt and The Fiend. Now, for the purposes of this actual booking video, it doesn't really matter, however, I do believe it is necessary. After all, the only real inkling of this dynamic between The Fiend and Bray Wyatt came within the form of his Universal Championship run. And spoilers, that run doesn't particularly happen because all of that Seth Rollins stuff sucked. But Dominic, you sweet baby child, I hear you explain. What will then be his next feud? Well, at Clash of Champions, I do believe that Bray Wyatt should attack someone just like how he did in real life. But instead, it's not going to be Seth Rollins. Instead, Bray Wyatt attacks the next best thing, Erick Rowan. After Rowan's win over Roman Reigns, Bray Wyatt does his mandible claw finisher to his former henchman. Now, I understand that Bray Wyatt and Erick Rowan at this time were on different brands. However, I think that this fact actually benefits Bray Wyatt in the long run. The Fiend is already a very unpredictable and unforgiving monster, so I believe that this kind of attack against somebody who's on a different brand could just add to his mysterious aura. I would have him not specifically be assigned to any roster, having the ability to show up on Raw and SmackDown whenever he wants. I get that this doesn't particularly follow the rules of any sort of brand split, but whoever said that The Fiend should follow any sort of rules? However, on the SmackDown after, we do get an explanation as to why Rowan was targeted by The Fiend when Bray Wyatt addresses the situation on the Firefly Funhouse episode that is all designed around the idea of change. He talks about how change can be both a good thing and a bad thing. For instance, no matter how many times Rowan has changed, he was always at his best when by the side of Bray in the Wyatt family. And then Bray can finish it off by saying that Rowan would make an excellent addition to the Firefly Funhouse, asking him to stop fighting what he's meant to be, a friend and loyal part of Bray Wyatt's family. So yeah, Bray Wyatt has decided to try and recruit Rowan through this explanation of change. And yeah, Rowan isn't stupid. He clearly says no to this idea. Rowan understands that Bray Wyatt is kind of insane right now. And then Rowan can go on to say that he understands that change can be a good thing and it has been a good thing for him. Okay, even though it took a few reinventions, you gotta think Rowan was in the main event picture around this time on SmackDown. So this leads to a match at Hell in a Cell between The Fiend and Erick Rowan. A match where both have something to prove. And even though Rowan may get a few good shots in on Bray Wyatt, it doesn't really matter because the match is absolutely and completely dominated by The Fiend. To the point where even after The Fiend absolutely dominates Rowan and actually gets the victory, The Fiend just continues to beat down and tear apart Erick Rowan. However, during this attack, we see a returning Luke Harper come out and try to save Erick Rowan. And Luke Harper, surprisingly enough, is able to throw Bray Wyatt out of the ring while Rowan is laid out on the mat before The Fiend disappears. Also, Braun Strowman defeats Seth Rollins for the Universal Championship inside the confines of a Hell in a Cell, because that is way better than Seth Rollins defeating The Fiend via ref stoppage in a Hell in a Cell match. What the fuck? Anyways, after Hell in a Cell over the next few weeks, Harper and Rowan say that they refuse to be physically and psychologically damaged by Bray Wyatt once again. Harper and Rowan say that they have always been at their best together, away from Bray Wyatt. Since leaving him in their past, they have become dominating competitors. Instead of being under Bray's control, Rowan and Harper have changed themselves for the better and are looking to permanently get away from Bray Wyatt. As such, this leads to a match between The Fiend and the combination of Erick Rowan and Luke Harper at the always controversial Crown Jewel event. So instead of Bray Wyatt winning the Universal Championship here, he goes on to beat the hell out of Rowan and Harper. In fact, he beats them so badly that Bray effectively just writes Harper and Rowan off of TV. And yes, I do understand that I'm writing this with the power of hindsight anyways, you know, knowing that they both eventually get released anyways. But I do believe that this could end up becoming another opportunity for them. Sure, Harper was already begging to leave, so a release makes sense, but I think that this can be an opportunity for Rowan to eventually make some sort of a shock return down the line as a huge monster on Raw away from Bray Wyatt. You know, one with less spiders. Anyways, now that Bray Wyatt has successfully and effectively beaten Harper and Rowan, it's time to move on to Survivor Series. Now, obviously, he's not particularly a part of any roster. He's not really affiliated with Raw or SmackDown, so instead, he decides to go after somebody at random. And that person is Dolph Ziggler. Now, I know that Dolph Ziggler may be a weird choice for this feud between himself and Bray Wyatt, but actually, it kind of makes a lot of sense. Dolph Ziggler has kind of been a non-entity throughout his entire career, and Bray Wyatt can definitely use that and capitalize on that. Bray Wyatt says that all Dolph has done for pretty much his entire career is whine and complain about not getting a proper opportunity. However, after Dolph became world champion in his now iconic Money in the Bank cash-in, he never did anything to try and force himself into relevance. He kind of just stayed stagnant, whereas Bray reinvented himself. And that's exactly what this next chapter in The Fiend's lifespan, at least in his first year, can be about. He talked about how change can be a bad thing when referring to Rowan and Harper. However, now we can talk about how a lack of reinvention can be even worse. Also, this match makes me personally happy because the idea of The Fiend beating the hell out of Dolph Ziggler, ooh, that makes me very happy. Which is exactly what happens at Survivor Series, with Bray Wyatt absolutely decimating Dolph Ziggler to the point where Dolph Ziggler gets written off of TV, he can go back to stand-up comedy and try to figure out a way to actually be interesting for once in his career. Did I just throw shade at Dolph Ziggler? Yeah, I did. However, something else happens in this matchup. You see, typically after a Bray Wyatt match, the lights kind of go out and he just appears at the top of the ramp. But when the lights come back up, you see someone else standing in the ring. We are greeted with another mysterious presence from Bray Wyatt's past, none other than Broken Matt Hardy. Both Matt Hardy and The Fiend stare at each other before eventually disappearing. So yeah, Matt Hardy is pretty much Bray Wyatt's next feud, but we hold off on the idea of a match between them until a little down the ways. Bray Wyatt doesn't particularly talk about Matt Hardy. In fact, on the Firefly Funhouse, he does continue his weekly or bi-weekly or whatever episodes, but instead his messages aren't particularly focused at anybody. He talks a lot more to the Fireflies about what happens after successful reinvention. He talks about success and glory, something that he's tried to gain for years but hasn't really been able to either hold or hold for a long time. However, in the meantime, Matt Hardy on Monday Night Raw or SmackDown or whatever brand he's on, does a brand split even exist? I don't know. Either way though, we see Matt Hardy's broken character definitely take shape. He becomes more vicious, starts biting people in his matches. He spouts his own messages wanting to finally become a top competitor in WWE. He's never been able to grab the brass ring, but now he is going to delete all the competition. So at TLC, I'm gonna be honest, I don't really have anything for this feud. I don't really want to expose the Fiend, and let's be honest, I don't really give a shit about TLC in general, so yeah, I guess just no TLC matchup for the Fiend. Sorry. But in the weeks after TLC, I would have Bray Wyatt kind of discuss more about the Royal Rumble, the next pay-per-view in the timeline. Perhaps teasing that he may enter the Royal Rumble wanting that success, wanting that glory that we mentioned a few moments ago. This happens at Matt Hardy during his own broken promos, talks more about his desire to gain glory, to gain his own success, before announcing that he's going to be in the Royal Rumble matchup. So Matt Hardy's broken brilliance is on full display during the Royal Rumble match. In fact, he does so well that he's in the final 3 of the Royal Rumble matchup before number 30 enters the ring. However, as Matt Hardy stares out at the WrestleMania sign, the lights go out. When the lights come back up, we see the Fiend staring down Matt Hardy in between Matt and the WrestleMania sign. Then, and this may be a controversial part of the actual booking that I have, but we're going with it, as the two men stare off, the lights keep going out and coming back up. Each time the light cuts out, the other members of the match disappear and are eliminated. I think it would be a very interesting and unique way for Bray Wyatt to actually eliminate people in the Royal Rumble, okay? Just turning out the lights and then coming up with them just being gone. I don't know, that seems pretty on brand for the Fiend, and it feels like something that only he can do. But then as Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt are left alone in the ring, Matt Hardy starts to do the delete chant before immediately getting a mandible claw by Bray Wyatt. He throws Matt Hardy out of the ring instead of just turning off the lights and turning them back on. If that's not your jam, he can just eliminate people anyways. However, Matt Hardy gets thrown over the top rope, so we see the physical elimination of Matt Hardy by Bray Wyatt. So Matt Hardy's need to grab the brass ring slowly dissipates as the Fiend wins the Royal Rumble. Now before you yell at me, I understand that Drew McIntyre did in fact win this Royal Rumble and go on to beat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania for the WWE Championship. To counteract that, I would still have Drew eliminate Brock Lesnar before eventually being eliminated by 2, perhaps 3 separate people. Perhaps all of the OC. And at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, Drew McIntyre can win a #1 Contenders Elimination Chamber and go on to fight Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, so that timeline can still continue. However, to turn our attention back to the Fiend and Bray Wyatt during his Firefly Funhouse promos following this win, Bray Wyatt is, let's just say, very excited. On the Firefly Funhouse, Bray Wyatt starts hyping himself up to an almost comedic extent, happy that he is finally getting a chance at this success that he has been aching for. Meanwhile, Matt Hardy goes into this downward spiral. He understands that he had one chance to become a top player in the WWE, and yet it was just taken away from him like that by Bray Wyatt. And through these angry, hell, we can just call them obsessive promos, Matt Hardy decides to challenge the Fiend for Super Showdown. So Matt Hardy, he's angry, he's pissed off, he needs a victory against Bray Wyatt, so at Super Showdown, Matt Hardy gets his ass kicked by the Fiend. Yeah, Bray Wyatt destroys him. Like, Matt Hardy can try to outspook Bray Wyatt, but every time Matt Hardy tries to pull some sort of a trick, Bray just immediately stops it. Hell, Matt Hardy can bring in Vanguard 1 before Bray Wyatt snatches it out of the air and just eats it. He just consumes Vanguard 1, or I don't know, he just throws it at the Saudi Arabian crowd. I don't know, you can make it up. Either way though, Bray Wyatt defeats Matt Hardy in hopefully a very brutal way to write him off of television. So Bray Wyatt is going to WrestleMania, and Matt Hardy, he's probably leaving for AEW at this point. Oh, also side note, if it was my choice, and considering the fact that I'm fantasy booking this, it's my freaking choice, I would not have this Super Showdown pay-per-view in Saudi Arabia. I would have it take place Chicago, maybe? Somewhere where a lot of smart fans live. You know, a place where Matt Hardy's broken gimmick is kind of known. Somewhere where the fans won't just boo it or just be confused by the overall silliness of this gimmick. But now it's time for the final feud of the video, where Bray Wyatt finally goes after the Universal Championship at WrestleMania. Of course, the Universal Champion is Braun Strowman, which I mentioned earlier in the Hell in a Cell recap thing. Either way, moving on. Over the next few weeks, Bray starts to get more fixated on the Universal Championship, aching for that glory that he so desires. However, Bray Wyatt, he's a creepy and insane person. He starts to hear voices in his head. Now, I don't know if Randy Orton hears the same voices as Bray Wyatt, but hey, they're voices nonetheless. These voices are saying that even though Bray Wyatt has successfully reinvented himself, even though he's put away the people of his past, like Rowan, like Harper, like Balor, he still has one more person to get through that he has to personally defeat. And that, of course, is the Universal Champion, Braun Strowman. But here's the thing, we still have Elimination Chamber to get through. And Braun Strowman is pretty much like, cool, yes, the Fiend, awesome. However, I've got these 5 dudes in a cage at Elimination Chamber, so BRB. So Braun Strowman is focused on the Elimination Chamber for the Universal Championship. This should hopefully make Braun Strowman feel a bit like an underdog, like he has to fight all of the odds before even dealing with this absolute monster in the Fiend. However, at Elimination Chamber, the match is weirdly made easier for Braun Strowman. Throughout the night, we keep cutting backstage to see all of the competitors in that Elimination Chamber match get laid out backstage. Apart, of course, from Braun Strowman. Because of this, Braun Strowman gets an easy Elimination Chamber victory while being very confused. After the match, Braun is actually being interviewed about the situation, and Braun is just standing there confused. He's thinking to himself, I didn't do any of this. I don't know who attacked these guys. I don't know what's happening, but that ain't it, Chief. That ain't me. I didn't do this. No. And in the middle of this interview, the lights go out before coming back up to see Braun Strowman staring down Bray Wyatt, before Bray Wyatt once again disappears, and in his place is a black sheep mask. And that's basically what this entire feud will play off of. Quite like how in real life after WrestleMania, Braun Strowman and Bray Wyatt seem to have a bit of a feud for the championship, we're just gonna have that here before WrestleMania, okay? Bray Wyatt saying, oh, you were a part of the Wyatt family. Braun Strowman's like, I don't want to be a part of the Wyatt family. And wild and crazy shenanigans ensue. I mean, you can have video packages, you can have attacks, you can have pretty much basically what has happened in television. Like, Bray Wyatt is saying, hey, you should join the family, you should join the Firefly Funhouse. And Braun Strowman's like, nah, I'm good, Chief. I reinvented, I changed, blah, 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 all the stuff that Bray Wyatt was kind of dealing with before. So up until WrestleMania, you can have the entire year of Bray Wyatt's story come back. Braun Strowman was the man who reinvented himself, but in a way that was successful, unlike Harper and Rowan's constant repackages. So Braun represents the thing that Bray Wyatt could never truly be. He was a repackaging that ended up becoming champion. Braun can say that he is so far removed from Bray Wyatt and the Wyatt family that people barely associate him with that faction anymore. Instead, he's his own man. He's his own champion. Whereas Bray Wyatt suffered loss after loss after loss until he was forced to reinvent himself. But now it's time for WrestleMania 36, 1 year after Bray Wyatt's new character debut, 1 year after returning as this sick and maniacal Firefly Funhouse having Fiend. Bray Wyatt's story finally culminates when he wins the Universal Championship. Not against Seth Rollins before losing to Goldberg in like 7 moves, one of them being a suplex, but on a night that would end up becoming his true make or break moment. He's the most over thing in the company, and his year-long story culminates here. From a man saying that change is an absolutely drastic and sometimes terrible thing, to a man who talks about how the lack of reinvention is also perhaps even worse, up until being met with the one man who reinvented himself away from Bray Wyatt to become a massive star in the WWE. Bray Wyatt's long journey finally culminates, and he becomes a man with all of the glory and success of being Universal Champion. And as a bit of epilogue, Bray Wyatt's journey can continue on. He repackaged himself, and he finally got the glory and success that he so desperately wanted. And now he can explore the idea of what it takes to truly stay on top of WWE. He can explore the idea of someone burying everybody else to make sure that they stay on top of the card. Even when fans are absolutely turned against this individual, Bray Wyatt, he can just explore the idea of staying on top no matter what, and he can do that perfectly with John Cena in the Firefly Funhouse match. But yeah, that's gonna be the end of this video here. If you guys liked it, please let me know by hitting the like button down below. What else do you want me to book? What do you guys think of this booking of The Fiend's first year in WWE? Did you guys like it? Did you guys hate it? Let me know down in the comment section down below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and if you have, why not hit the bell to be notified of everything we do here at GrappleNation. My name is Dominic, and have a good day.